with a great deal of consistency what that report's going to do, much like the non-farm payroll. I can have a schematic in mind where I think that this is what the price is going to do. It's going to behave this way. It's going to attack this liquidity first and then go here. But you know what that is? It's the equivalent of the same thing that a football team's head coach does when they're at the Super Bowl. They have a playbook. But how many times is the other team that didn't win looking at that playbook saying, but I had it all figured out beforehand? If the players just would have did this, if the candlesticks would have just did what they were supposed to do, that's unrealistic thinking. Those are unrealistic results. I know that these markets are going to be even more manipulated in a degree where I can't participate and trust that my concepts, my models are going to perform as efficiently as they would if they're not in those particular settings. Any given day of the week, apart from the things I've mentioned here, I'm pretty confident that I'm going to find something I'm going to be able to take home. Now, me being your mentor and you saying I'm a student of you and I believe in your concepts, that doesn't equate to you being on the level, knowing how to do it yet. So don't blur that line. And some of you get and this is where it becomes, admittedly, it's cult-like, because anything that gets popular and it feels like you want to be a part of it and it's able to do things that's something different, people want to plug into that and it gives them an identity. You're stronger than that. You don't need to identify with me. You don't need to identify with my concepts. It doesn't mean you can't employ them. It doesn't mean that they can't be a basis for you to be trading. But so many of you are just trying to be part of something that's not required for you to be profitable, meaning the carnival-like atmosphere. I love the camaraderie and the tight-knit feeling of our community, but many of you go on the defensive when you don't need to, and that's an unrealistic result as well. You can't worry about defending me. You can't worry about defending my concepts. They do it all by themselves. Okay, I don't need anybody to defend me or how I trade. Your focus should be primarily on you. What are you doing today that's leading you to being better than you were yesterday, last week, last month, last quarter, last year? And are you logging that? You have to be journaling. If you're not journaling, that's an unrealistic result. You have no baseline measurement. You have no way of being able to judge, are you really seeing progress? Because if you go by a gut feeling, I feel better about getting in trade, that's nothing. That's nothing. Some of those executions I did and shared with you this week and last, once I got into the trade, I was like, I wish I wouldn't have got in this trade now. I wish I would have waited on another move and even got in at a higher price, even though I was bullish. Even though I got in at a lower price, I didn't like where I was in certain parts of those executions. But I was there, and that's exactly what it's like for you when you get into the real world, where you're trading with real money. You're going to push a button. And now what do? If you don't feel so warmed up to the idea that you've placed yourself correctly? You either have to manage yourself through that trade or kill it and then go in at a better place where you feel sound, you feel comfortable. And books don't talk about these types of things. Other teachers, they don't talk about those things. It's something that you're going to encounter. But when you sugarcoat it and you put blinders on, you say, well, I didn't really do anything wrong here because the trade did eventually pan out. Well, that's not accurate. You have to identify what caused you the uncomfortable state of mind. I've been listening to the Top Step YouTube channel. Those guys over there, they used to trade on the floor. And I absolutely love listening to their stories. I love listening to their banter. And I like using their chat window for sentiment because it's a wonderful way of being able to see, overbought, oversold, when capitulation's there, when I can fade that type of thing. And please don't be put off by that because they're doing the same thing. When they talk about their tilt, that's a sentiment indicator. All of you are going to want to use that. And all I'm doing is using the real-time sentiment indicators that the commentary of these participants in that chat window and other YouTubers I like to listen to, I'm not there to learn how to trade. I'm there for the community aspect of listening to them talk about how it was for them on the floor. I love hearing. I wish they would do more of that. I wish they would do more of that. I started when that was still the way of trading. We're dinosaurs. That way of trading is gone. It'll never be like that again. And when I heard one of the gentlemen talk about how they had traded, and while they did well enough to come out in a profit, he said, I don't like it. And even though I was profitable, I don't feel I did well today. You know what that is? That's not beating yourself up. That's reality. And that's exactly what all of you need to do. You can't just say, well, I pushed a button. I want to hope in a prayer. It worked out in my favor, so therefore it's skill, baby. Look at me. Watch me shine. I have a great deal of respect for that. I have a great deal of respect for any trader that says, you know what, this worked out in my favor, but really it was just a state of me being fortunate enough to see it come out in my favor. It had nothing to do with skill, because if I was being honest with you, I wish I wouldn't have taken that very trade there. Are you equipped to critique yourself that way, where you're not beating yourself up? You're not undermining the mindset that you're going to need to tap into. You're not trying to belittle yourself. You're not trying to shame yourself, but you're holding yourself to accountability. And that's a very, very hard line to walk as a human being, let alone placing it on the measurement of making money or losing and equating that to failure or successfulness. And you can't do that in trading, because you can be successful and still just taking very small losses, or getting into a trade and saying, oh, well, I thought I saw something here, but it really isn't there. And if I hold on to it, really what I'm doing is I'm gambling, because I don't feel confident about that setup. And I'm not going to wrestle and arm wrestle myself and say, well, if I get out, I know it's going to run and I'm going to regret that. No. A professional mindset doesn't think like that. You know who thinks like that? A gambler. This slot machine is cold. I've been putting money on it for 2-3 hours. It ain't paying out nothing. But I know as soon as I get up, Larry over there in the corner who's eating. Dial it back, ICT. Slow down. Slow down. Someone else is going to slide on in when you get up, and you know what they're going to do. They're going to put enough money in, the ratio will be met, and then the machine will pay out. And you'll say, I knew I was right if I just would have. Well, you can't do that in trading. You can't have a slot machine mentality, because if you're gaining the experience, learning how to navigate these markets, knowing what you're looking for, if that's not there for your trade, everything's not saying this is really what you should be in right now. You're all things are a go for this trade to be profitable. If those things are not, in fact, what's going on for your trade, then you need to kill it, or at the very minimum, take half the trade off and let experience guide you in the rest of it. But if you're honest with yourself right now, if we were in a conversation together, it was just the privacy of you and I talking, and I was saying, hey, have you ever had this experience where you knew you shouldn't have been in the trade, but yet you're still in it? Wouldn't you feel uncomfortable saying it publicly? You would feel uncomfortable, because you're equating it to, well, it's not something that people should blame. They shouldn't blame me for it. They shouldn't have any harsh criticism because I'm trading. I'm doing more than you. And I was willing to hold on to the trade, even though I knew it was not likely to be profitable. I was able to hold on to it, so therefore it makes me stronger. No, it makes you a gambler. It makes you a gambler. It makes you hold on to emotional stimuli for fear of feeling an emotional stimuli at a later time that was going to be regretful. Because if you're right, and you hold on to it, you're going to call that skill. And I'm here to tell you, That's not skill. If you know your model's no longer in that setup,